Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hey everyone, this is Alvaro and Mollee here on Life List, our podcast, and we have Molly Brown with me today.
Hey everybody.
Yeah, hey, George, who usually does the George part that I'm doing. I'm like the fake George today. He's in India, so don't feel bad for George. I think he's probably coming back with some great stories for us. But how you doing, Molly?
I'm doing great. Yeah. It actually feels like spring here right now. So I can talk a little bit about what things have been like here, but I've been outside, just sitting outside working for the past 5 days or so, which has been a change, and it's lifted my mood a lot. It's been great.
Oh, cool. Yeah, here, coastal California, sometimes it doesn't have seasonality as much as other places. Like spring is windy. Where I live is always kind of cool. So you never get like that rush of summer heat is here or something like that. So except the fall is sort of like our summer. And sometimes it's t-shirt weather in the middle of the winter and sometimes it's freezing cold. So it's like really weird. But for me, it's always the birds, right? So right now, like the robins are singing and the Allen's hummingbirds are around, which are a total sign of spring. And I haven't been to the woods, but I've heard that warblers have come back, like Wilson's and orange crowns. So for me too, it's like when the violet green swallows arrive in the neighborhood, that's spring, because they breed right here and they're pretty quick. Like, so they're efficient little birds. So they get here and start breeding and boom, then they're gone. And it's all en masse. So they haven't really arrived. The other day it was warm and they were kind of around, then it cools down and they leave. I don't know how that works, but swallows are cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I just saw on my Facebook memories that last year I had tree swallows today. And I haven't really been to the water where I'd normally see them first. I know they're creeping up through West Virginia, but everything has just started singing like crazy here. So we had, this was crazy. Friday of last week, we were out working in t-shirts. It was like 60 degrees, super warm. Saturday, we got 10 inches of snow.
Oh, wow.
And and the ground froze and the temperatures were down in the teens. And then by Monday, it was back up into the 60s again. But that seemed to be when everything started coming in. So right here around the house, house finches and cardinals and titmice are going crazy now. Mockingbirds are all over the place. And I'm also hearing mockingbirds doing like white-eyed vireos, and one was doing some thrush chips. And I assume that means that they've come up, and those are my mockingbirds that have actually migrated north too, because I haven't heard those birds yet, but they'll be our earlier migrants.
That's fascinating. I'd never thought about that. Like that you could sort of, by who they're copying, know if it's the same individuals that have been around or not. So it's like almost like a band, it's like, the white-eyed vireo mockingbird's back, that's cool.
Yeah, that's been my assumption anyway. I assume they're coming from somewhere else because it's a little early for vireos and things, and I certainly haven't heard any around here. I heard a couple mockingbirds mocking phoebes about a day before there were 3 phoebes around singing, and we have some phoebes that overwinter. That's not there's a little bit of overlap there, but yeah, they're a good predictor for me, and there are a lot around where I am right here too, so it's fun to listen to them.
Well, I used to ponder this like when I was like a new birder, and I learned about starlings that they mimic, and the first time you hear them doing Eastern meadowlark or something, and that was in a time when I wasn't around mockingbirds. So for me, that was like the bird that was like the mimic bird. And I thought, how about if in Alaska a starling landed and it was mimicking like a chiff-chaff? Could you count it as a wild bird? Like, is that enough to sort of say that starling got here from Asia or Europe or something on its own? But I mean, it's kind of like that's exactly what you're doing. Sort of saying, hey,
Yeah, that's funny. I always think about that with blue jays doing red-shouldered hawk calls around here too.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't actually looked into that outside of the red-shouldered hawk range, or where they're less common if the blue jays are mocking them as much or at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And Stellar's jays do the same thing. And they will often here do red-tailed hawks. I mean, I'm trying to think, have I heard them do red shoulders? But yeah, it's interesting that might be, they always say that they're trying to basically scare away other birds from food sources.
Mm-hmm.
But I do wonder if a bird that's so smart, like a jay, is just doing it for a gag. It's just basically, could be having fun with it, rather
Yeah.
than having a reason, sort of a logical kind of evolutionary reason for it. Never know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but that's been my fun. Haven't seen a brown thrasher yet, but I was hoping I'd see one before I leave tomorrow.
Right.
I'll be heading out for a while. And they're always, we have a few birds that'll slowly trickle in over the next few weeks that'll kind of get things started for migration.
Yeah.
I was also hoping I would get an early Louisiana water thrush, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah,
They're usually last few days of
I
the
was going
month.
to ask you about Louisiana water thrush. That always sort of seems to be like it is so much earlier than a lot of the other warblers, and that it, not all, but it's sort of, and it's like a sign, like it's like, boom, the neotropical migrants are here.
Yep. Yeah, I'm particularly excited this year because my partner Jimmy and I got property that we closed on at the end of fall last year.
Cool.
He wanted property that had rocks and rhododendrons. I wanted property that had woodcocks and water thrushes. So far we have 3 of the 4. We've been going out and watching woodcocks, and they're all over the place. And now I'm just waiting to see if we have water thrush on territory on our creek. So
that'd be cool.
I can't wait for that. Yeah.
You know that he wants R&R and you want W&W.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Which we were all happy with all 4 of those. But yeah, that was our mantra for like the year that we were looking for property, is that it had to tick those.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, hopefully, they'll come in soon, and you'll be successful in your quest for the W's.
I hope so. Yeah, we've got a really nice creek that goes through the property. It's a little bigger than the creeks that I'm usually around, and the water's pretty rushing, and it's really rocky and moves pretty quickly. I'm hoping that's not too big for a water thrush to have territory. So that's what I'll see.
Yeah,
I feel good about it.
Yeah, that's beyond my. I mean, I never lived with Louisiana water thrushes. They were always sort of like an edge thing for me, like right at the edge of their range. So I always, it's pretty cool to ponder that they could be there for months with you. Like for me, it was always like, wow, Louisiana water thrush, good, good find. And then they were gone. But there was only a few places in Ontario where they actually bred, where I could see them in summer, but probably more so now with climate change, but they've probably moved.
Yeah, I don't know much about their expansion. Northern water thrush is a real treat to see passing through, and they breed in a couple places in West Virginia here. But Louisiana water thrush is one of my favorite birds, and I really like bird sounds, and it's one of my favorite bird songs too. So I want to hear them. I want to see them, but I really want to hear them. I can't wait.
Have you ever wondered why, if there's any reason why, like the Louisiana water thrush, sounds, it. Oh, I'm just totally blanking out on the bird. The thing looks like a worm-eating warbler down south, Swainson's warbler.
Swainson's, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a Swainson's warbler with a flurry at the end.
Yeah, totally. And I think they have similar behaviors and personalities too. I mean, Swainson's don't do the bouncing thing, but they both seem super territorial to me. And I don't have as much experience with Swainson's. They do breed here in West Virginia, but a little bit farther south. And their habitat's similar. Yeah. I think Louisiana water thrush could be found anywhere that a Swainson's is, and maybe not vice versa. But they both just seem like they have so much attitude, and I love that. And yeah, they're very similar in my mind.
Yeah, they're sort of like I want to say like in the warbler family tree, the brown warblers are all kind of the early ones, and they're more closely related to each other. So the two
Mm-hmm.
water thrushes, Swainson's, worm eating, and ovenbird is in there. They're all kind of like, they're not amazingly closely related, but they're kind of like a group. I mean, if I remember right, but so there's some element there too of, the big bills and sort of
Mm-hmm.
the ground dwelling,
Yeah.
we're meeting not so much, but still it's got aspects that are, spike bills.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly closer than a lot. Where does Kentucky fall in with that?
Kentucky's a yellowthroat, essentially. It's like it's a yellowthroat
Mm.
group. So
I think
it's
of
sort
it
of,
as not visually, but
yeah,
behaviorally and covering a lot of ground on foot like that. And I
yeah,
guess yellowthroat's not far off.
right. Yeah, warblers, boy. Yeah, they
Yeah.
kind of define our continent in a way for the birder,
Mm-hmm.
more so than a lot of other birds. I try to get people hooked on icterids, blackbirds, saying that they're the coolest birds in North America, but people are like, yeah, but there's warblers. And you can't compete.
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot, a lot of the blackbird love is all about behavior and
Mm-hmm.
oddities, while the warblers is more about just aesthetic, song and look, and the fact that they rush in, to the place.
Yeah.
Well, grackles you can see all year round in a lot of places, and people are like, grackles aren't interesting. It's like, well, they are actually. Look at them. Look when they're breeding and doing all their stuff. It's pretty wild, Well,
Oh, yeah.
grackle.
Yeah. It's the anticipation, I think, that really gets me for warblers. I wouldn't call them my favorite family group or anything, but
Yeah.
I might like them more in March than any other time. Like the month I'm waiting for them might be my
Yeah.
favorite time for warblers.
Yeah. No, exactly. I do think they have massive fan base, though.
Mm-hmm.
They're not quite like owls and raptors, because they've got but it's a different fan base. It's sort of like, different group of people who are the owl and raptor folks, and then the shorebird, gull, and, flycatcher. Just all
Mm-hmm.
the hard to identify things have their fans. But
Yeah.
yeah. Hey,
Yeah, I'd say so.
hey, Molly, you were at the San Diego festival, weren't you?
I
Like
was,
a
yep.
couple of weeks ago or whatever. So
Yeah.
what was that like? It's one of the first festivals that's sort of happening, like
Mm-hmm.
in this, I don't want to say post-COVID world, but in this late COVID world,
Yeah,
or whatever we want to call
post
it.
start of COVID world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so there was a festival last year as well. It had been a few years since I've been out there. This was my second time attending. And it went off great. I mean, it's super well organized, and San Diego Audubon is just fantastic and active and has a massive local fan base, and then they bring a lot of people in too. So I think that's fun. There's always been a really good mix of local birders and nature enthusiasts, and then people who are traveling in. And so I led the same trip each day, and it was sort of a local trip, or a locally based trip that was seeing local birds just really close to where the festival center was. I also did a workshop on leading bird trips and being a bird guide, so that was fun.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, so a lot of the participants that were on the field trips that I was leading were locally based, and that was fun too. But as far as how the festival went, I think it was kind of like this last year too. There weren't many trips where you were riding in vans, first off.
Okay.
So how I think that festival had typically been, and how a lot of the festivals that went to these different destinations were, I think that's a shift that a few have done, where you're driving yourself there to get to those. Other than that, there were vaccination requirements or daily testing requirements. We sanitized scopes if we were sharing them and that kind of thing. We did not wear masks when we were out. I think we were wearing masks if you were in a vehicle and if you were traveling, and if you were out on the field trips, and it was your discretion too when you were outside. And it was packed. I don't actually know how the numbers compared to past years, but I mean, field trips were selling out. Our field trip was full. maybe every day.
Yeah,
And
wow.
yeah, people seem to have a really great time.
Yeah, I had no idea that. Maybe I did, and I'd forgotten that there was sort of a version of the festival last year. I'm trying to think how they must have pulled that off with a lot of
Yeah.
masking and social distancing and kind of outdoor events rather than indoor events.
Mm-hmm.
You know, was there any incorporation of Zoom type stuff? Sort of. I've always wondered about this because there's an element of like the online way of presenting info to a big crowd is actually pretty cool, but
Mm-hmm.
we're all sort of a little bit tired of it. But will it sort of stay as a part of what we do in festivals and other things like that? Did they do anything like that?
You know, I think it was minimal. I think that there were maybe some lectures that were on Zoom too. To my knowledge, there weren't full Zoom field trips, and I hope I'm not wrong on that.
Right.
I really wasn't paying very close attention to that, honestly. I think that at least some of the talks and some of the options were available as virtual things. Overall, there wasn't a huge focus on that. I would
Right.
say this was more of a regular festival than a hybrid festival, to use
Okay.
the pandemic language.
Hybrid festival.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I know you probably, so being, a person's not always out in the West, right?
Mm-hmm.
What birds here's a question, like what bird did you see that you're like, whoa, love that thing, or maybe hadn't seen it before? And B, what bird you'd seen before you got to see again and again and go, huh, that's a pretty cool bird and didn't think about it, or anything that comes up like that, just sort of maybe not those specific questions, but what sort of struck you as like, huh?
Yeah. Well, I did go out a few days before the festival. I actually flew into LA and I went up for condors first off,
Oh, right.
and that was fantastic. So that was one.
Yeah.
And my flight almost got canceled, and I was like flying out of a small airport here, and things almost got shifted around. And I thought, oh no, I planned the whole like first part of this trip around seeing condors.
Right.
That was fantastic. So those were highly anticipated and lived up to the
Right.
hype that I had for them in my head too.
They're
But
big.
yeah, oh yeah, it was just, I had a really fantastic day. The past year or so, I honestly, I haven't been birding as much as I have for the past several years. I haven't done as much of just getting out and spending a few hours birding.
Right.
Yeah, for one, I had a really nice little patch before, and I've moved now, and I'm kind of in a suburb, and I can't just walk outside and get to a great birding trail quite as quickly. There's still fun things, but anyway, I haven't had many days where I've just gone out and gone birding all day, and that was what I did when I went for the condors, and I was just driving around, and everything was so exciting just to kind of be out on the road and by myself and getting to experience all that. So as much as the condors were amazing, just having a day like that when it had been a while since I had done that was really great too.
Did you try the trick of lying down with the ketchup all around you?
You know what?
Were you tempted? You're like, oh man, that photo I could get.
I was tempted, and I did do that. So that was just, I had just edited our podcast episode where you were talking about this too. It came out the day that I saw condors. So that was fun. But, I was driving around and I knew this spot. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name. It was kind of I think the closest reliable spot north of LA, Bitter Creek National Wildlife Refuge. So I had the hot spot. I knew they were out around 10:30 or so. I had gone for bell sparrow just down in the lowlands and was getting some other stuff and was just having a great day and was kind of behind, and it was warm and I was afraid they were going to take off. So I was driving up this road and I was winding, and a falcon that I didn't see as I was driving by took off down the cliff that just as I was kind of rounding a turn. So I hit the brakes and I jumped out and I put my binoculars up to look for it. And I saw in the distance a speck. And I thought just the exact way that you said on the episode about it. As soon as you see it, it's a condor. I haven't seen Andy and condor. So that was my first condor period, but I knew it was. So then I had to drive and catch up to them. And there were 2 juveniles and an adult. And that was just my first thought. I jumped out of the car and they were super low. They were really close. They might have just lifted off from somewhere. Or I don't know. Maybe they were just staying low to the ground. I laid flat on my back and held my camera up and started taking pictures. And it felt like they were coming to check me out. They were moving slowly anyway, but they stayed right above me for a little bit. I took a couple full frame shots and then they drifted on.
Yeah.
And that was it. So thanks for the tip.
Yeah. It's like a low impact way of like, I think condors in general and people who've, worked with them in the conservation world, in captivity, they say they're super curious, and they have to check everything out. That's how they make their living in a sense. Right. So I think it's not impossible. They were partly like, either is that food or what's that lady doing? Sort of like,
it certainly seemed like that. One of the juveniles kind of stayed behind with me a little bit longer too, and then caught up to the others. And it totally struck me as curious.
Yeah. They're I think just kind of an interesting bird. At that, you get that big and you're sort of like, you really have nothing to fear. So they just, they just do their own thing and they go and rip up people's, patio furniture and stuff if they feel like that woman that had them coming in. And it's sort of like, they're just sort of almost like the otters of the bird world, in some ways. Like they just have time on their hands and curious, clever. It's pretty amazing bird, I mean, some people, I remember in the past, some people saying, we've spent millions of dollars on trying to get these birds back. Like, is it worth it? It's like, well, I mean, yeah. It's worth it. We spend millions of dollars like to house the Mona Lisa and all these artworks. It's like, it's like things that we value are important, right? Like, so that's cool. That sounds like, So by the time you got to the festival, you're like, oh yeah, I've already done what I wanted to do. Just sort of coasting. Yeah.
I wouldn't say dreading the festival, but I was a little, I was just busy and I was worried about taking off and going birding. And as soon as I got out there, that was kind of getting away from the height of winter here. And I do like winter, but as soon as I got out there and I felt the weather and the change, I was very happy and relaxed the whole time just to experience that. But I had a couple other target birds that I had picked out that I hadn't seen. And I just had really good luck. I had a couple of days of good birding, kind of ticked everything off that I wanted to see. The bird that totally struck me was a Lewis's woodpecker.
Oh yeah.
And that was a new one for me. And I don't know, I kind of thought it would be overrated, honestly, and I loved it. I thought it was great.
It is pretty amazing. Like, I like the way that they fly like crows, and like you could actually sort of say, oh, what's that funny looking crow? Like, they don't undulate like most woodpeckers. But then, there's sort of like the Western counterpart of the red-headed woodpecker. Like, they don't look alike, but if you start thinking about it, there's similarities into what they do and hanging out in sort of dead trees, and light catching. I remember red-headed woodpeckers would do that kind of thing every so often. Yeah. And so it's like, and I don't even know, like, do red-headed woodpeckers undulate when they fly, or do they just kind of go? Yeah, it's been too long.
Yeah, I don't see them often at all either. Yeah, I'm picturing an undulating flight.
Right.
Lewis's
are cool. They're so shiny like that when they hit the light and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, they were great. I had fun tracking that down too. I just saw a spot on eBird where one had been reported a couple times, and I don't even know where I was. I was sort of in a little suburb somewhere between LA and San Diego that had one of those things that I feel like is such a California thing to me, where you've got this little housing development or something, and then you have this incredible trail network right behind it that maybe it's just the locals who live there. I don't know, maybe more people. So I was just back in that. It was raining, and it was mixed in with a bunch of acorn woodpeckers, and was very unhappy with them.
Yeah.
So that was my experience getting to watch it, but it was really cool.
Yeah, no, woodpeckers, they've got their fans too. Big fan
Well,
network of woodpecker people. Yeah. Yeah.
They do.
Yeah, and then there's the ivory-billed people, but it's different. They're like the UFO people.
Yeah, I don't know if ivory-billed people, that might be separate from the woodpecker people. Maybe there's overlap, maybe there's not, but that's a whole nother group, I think.
And I'm not saying the ivory-billed isn't out there, but just show me the proof. Yeah.
Yeah.
What else has been going on?
Well, I like I said, I'm getting ready to head out and do just a little bit of a trip, which is actually a couple things for fun. Also on behalf of the birding co-op that I'm, involved in, and I'm going down and meeting with Osa Birds. Actually, we're setting up some plans for the future and getting some tours lined up to visit them in Costa Rica. On the way, I'm stopping in El Salvador for a few days and doing some birding there, which I'm really excited about. I don't totally know what to expect yet, but I like birding underbirded places, and I would say that it's pretty underbirded. Yeah,
it's pretty underbirded. Definitely. We had a trip like a few years ago that Peter Burke led to Nicaragua. There's another country that is, it was during a window where it was sort of possible to go there. I think it's gotten a little more, problematic politically now, but I might be wrong. That it was, I've never. I think I've been to the airport in El Salvador a few times. I've never actually been to the country.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. The airport has, I think I've been to the airport too, and I haven't been outside of the airport. But it's a major airport, and there's a lot of stopovers. So there are a couple groups that are putting together tours of different lengths. I'm spending 5 days there, but they're really excited about using that as like a stopover place to do some birding, and I'm going to have a totally different set of species than I'll have in Costa Rica too. Right. So that'll be fun. There's a lot of division there.
Yeah, it's like the northern Central American fauna rather than the southern. Yeah. It sounds like fun. Well, let us know how that goes. This evening, I'm heading off to Cuba, believe it or not. So like today's like this, I mean, probably like you, it's the day of getting all these things done that you're, not that I haven't been doing things the last few days, but I've just had a lot to do to organize trips in the future and other things, online work with, birding your best life and all that. So it's, I think when I'm on the plane, I'll have this like relief because it's sort of like what's done is done, what isn't done isn't done. And it's like, okay, now I focus on the birders and the birds in Cuba. So
yeah, very much. Yeah. This is a surprise for the group that I'm meeting with in El Salvador, but I'll be there before this comes out. But we're taking some optics down too that came from the co-op optics drive. So cool. I've got to get those packed, and I'm excited for that. And we've done that for a few groups to just support their initiatives and get optics to people who are interested in birding so that they can do good things with them. But yeah, I also have laundry running while we're recording, and I'm doing all of that too.
Yeah, I know. But I don't know if it's harder for you to pack or harder for me to pack, because I know that you take like the little bag,
I do.
So you probably have everything all set. Like I'm more like, oh man, should I take 3 pants or 4 pants? And then it's like, it's sort of like I don't have I have a checklist of what I need to do, but within that, there's like a realm of possibilities. I imagine you've got it like no possibilities. You already have set up what you're going to put in your tiny small bag.
Well, I think that my trick is I just really procrastinate until the very last minute, and then I just don't have time to put much in the bag. I certainly don't feel prepared, but I know I'm not taking much. I'm flying Avianca too, which is a Colombian airline. So they have a hub in El Salvador. I don't know how stringent they are on their their carry-on sizes. I do need to check that. I know some of those places aren't. Some of those airlines outside of the U.S. care a little bit more. So we'll see how that challenge plays out.
Right. Yeah. You'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, how long will you be in Cuba? Are you leading one tour there? Is that the plan?
Yeah. So it's a 10-day trip, but I arrive a day early.
Mm-hmm.
So we're mainly in, I would call it sort of the classic Cuba tour, in that we're not doing the very far east, which is quite far actually.
Mm.
So we go to the west and Zapata Peninsula, and also Camagüey, which is relatively far east, but enough to see some interesting things, but not way out east. I've been to Cuba, a bunch over the years, and I now have this almost need. I want to go see the big mountains in the east. Like, there are big mountains out there, and I've just never seen that. So one day maybe we'll find the ivory-bill woodpecker.
Yeah.
Or at least a Cuban kite, But there's stuff out there that still almost nobody goes to look at.
So is that an access challenge?
It is to some extent. Like, you can, Santiago de Cuba is a big city that's way out east, and you can fly in there you used to be able to fly in there with an American, based airline. Now all the airlines go to Havana from the US, so you can't get out there. So traveling all the way out there is long. It's not as small a country as you think on the map. It's pretty big. And you could fly internally, but I got to say, I'm not keen on flying on, a local airplane that's, might be like an old Russian kind of, Tupolev or something, So I'm not, I don't want to put clients in a situation where it's like, I'm not comfortable with. So first I'm going to have to scout that one day with friends or by myself or something. But there are all these other things out there that are interesting, like all the colorful land snails. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of them.
Not at all.
Cuba has this wide assortment of these amazing land snails that have colors and stripes and so forth. And they're mostly in the east. Like, you don't see them much in the west. Like, I've hardly seen any, and that I'm not sure why that is. If it might be that they're collected, might be that kind of conservation issue. But I just that's all interesting. And also there's some mammals too that are unusual and endemic that would be cool to try and see out in the far sort of east. And it'd be interesting one day.
How often do you run tours to Cuba?
Well, pre-pandemic, it was sort of 1 or 2 a year we would do. So, and it's I wouldn't say complicated, but you have to abide by a certain set of guidelines and rules that the State Department and the U.S. government has laid out, and places you're not allowed to stay, and kind of that kind of thing, and things that you cannot do based on the structure of rules. It goes up and down. It was actually much more open during the Obama years, and then it got much more difficult during the Trump years, and the Biden years have not loosened up anything from the Trump sort of era. So we're always thinking that
maybe
there's going to be a president who's just going to say, "Oh, enough with this. It's not working."
Yeah.
Let's engage the country rather than have these sort of half-hearted, weird.
Yeah. So if I, as an individual, want to visit Cuba, can I book a flight and go visit Cuba and go drive around and go birding right now?
That's a good question. I would say there's probably a way to do it if you're sort of saying that you're going as a support of the Cuban people, but it might be that you need to be in an organized group to do so. Like, it used to be you could just go through and they would call these people to people licenses. And now it's a little harder, but you can definitely buy a ticket and you can say you're doing something, but it's whether you ever get, you come back to the country and they realize that you didn't do what you said you were going to do, which was whatever the legal, reason you were there. And ironically, the birding trips are considered part of the humanitarian projects, because within the humanitarian projects, the State Department has defined a set of environmental projects. So if you're actually gathering data, and then sending that data to Cuban scientists and international bodies, then you're sort of doing a project. And in fact, a lot of the stuff we've over the years, seen and documented has gone into the brand new field guide to Cuba, and there's like a another checklist of the birds of Cuba, and it's all in there. So it's like it really is sort of legitimate. A lot of people used to do sort of just straight tourism, and that's not allowed in Cuba from the U.S. government perspective. You're not supposed to be just a tourist in Cuba, so you're supposed to be doing something, and ours is an environmental project. So we always work with local ornithologists and so on, get all the info, and trying to actually, I've over the years, I've been recording eastern meadowlarks down there, and that's another side project, trying to make the case that they're different enough that they don't understand eastern meadowlarks from the U.S. and Canada, that they should be considered a different species. So I do playback type experiments, and it's interesting. They don't react to like a regular eastern meadowlark.
Wow. Do they sound similar? They
sound similar, but enough to say, oh, eastern meadowlark, but you're like, well, that's a weird one,
Yeah.
And they look weird. They're little and stumpy, short, kind of odd.
And non-migratory.
Non-migratory,
guessing. Yeah. Huh.
But yeah, lots going on in Cuba.
Yeah. And you've just gotten back fairly recently from your past few trips, right?
Yeah. The birds and wine and Chile and Argentina, which is always a good trip. It's always fun because it's a little bit low key. Like we're making sure we have time to eat and drink wine and talk about culture and talk about people, not just birds. And then we do two little small sections of Chile and a little small section of Argentina. So we have two countries, one tour, and they're different in their environment, one side of the Andes versus the other side of the Andes, as well as their winemaking. And it's funny how it all kind of ties in together, like the environment and the birds, endemics on both sides, and also sort of like endemic winemaking sort of type. So different types of the way that the culture and also the local environment has shaped the food and wine. So it's a pretty cool trip. People always come out of it going, wow, I want to do that again.
Well, that's a trip you sell with just the name of it. You don't have to say much else.
I know. This trip, I mean, sort of like, you're describing the San Diego Festival. This, for me, was like the last trip I did when COVID was suddenly a huge deal. Like I think I got out on the last American Airlines flight out of Santiago back to the US before the country just shut everything down. So it was like we just squeezed in that trip 2 years ago. And then it was the first trip where we went back 2 years later. And it was interesting to sort of feel like, yay, like success, we're back. Like, because 2 years ago, we didn't know what was going to happen, right? Yeah. I mean, we had no idea and the fact that it's it's moved along that you can actually do this trip again, and the complexity of it, like 2 countries, sort of flight, 2 different sets of rules, testing everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I don't know if I've been tested more. I mean, it seems like I've got tested more than at exam week, like, sort of
Yeah.
like, it's like,
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean.
it's like testing everywhere, but it
Yeah.
worked.
Would you say that overall the trip was a similar experience than what it was 2 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, the only thing about like the testing that it creates is sometimes just this anticipation of, in people's sort of back of their mind, is like things could really go south here if the
Mm-hmm.
test is positive, right? Like you have this potential for things to really go to a different direction. And I think if you just sort of put yourself in the mindset of like, well, I mean, I'm not going to worry about anything unless it happens, right? Or, as a
Yeah.
tourist goes, obviously as a tour operator, you have, some kind of contingency plan in your head somewhere, or maybe you don't, but you
Mm-hmm.
at least pretend you do. But do you, I do think that does affect people to some extent. So if you can sort of navigate through it in a way that makes people feel like it's all going to be okay. We just have to go
Mm-hmm.
to this spot, get this test, and be done with it. And 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 also, I think from a tour operator's perspective, finding the places that will test you and have the information ready for you really quickly and super easy, and to somebody's email, and all those things that later people say, "Wow, that was actually pretty, you know, easy," is
Yeah.
key, right? You don't
Yeah.
want to.
Guess that's like the highest compliment you can get as a tour operator right
Yeah, yeah,
now.
right, right. I think that's key. Like, so people realize, oh, I mean, he really thought about, or they really thought about what they were doing here, who they chose, and why we went there versus some other place, and
Mm-hmm.
so there's like keeping your ear to the ground on that. What what was really weird from my perspective of these 2 countries is that the Chileans had this incredibly um, robust system of, like, you have to create this online account. You have to
Oh, yeah.
put all of your information in there, all of your um, vaccine info, and somebody actually looks through it and okays it. And then you get like your form is given the okay, and it's fully valid as a pass that you can use within the country once you've arrived in the country, and you take a test there, and then they will, when they get the info that test was negative, then your pass is completely valid and you can go everywhere and you show it at all these restaurants, and people actually ask for it, which is
Mm.
interesting. Like, they want to see the test. There's every restaurant has thermometer, like getting people's temperatures,
Oh, yeah.
and everywhere. And I think that they've just sort of downgraded the number of steps you have to do. But if you think about it, we were tested in the US to get on the plane. Then just a day or so later, we're tested again in Chile to get the pass okayed. Then you test again to go to the next country, and then you test to go back to the US. It's like a lot of different elements that you sort of have to facilitate. But in Argentina, on the other hand, they didn't have like this really serious online thing, and you didn't have to wait for a test once you got in there. Once you flew in, you were set. Much less mask use over
Mm-hmm.
there, and
Hmm.
they were way more on the slope of like, we're kind of done with this. And oddly enough, the COVID rates in Chile were higher than in Argentina, because I think Chile had such a big, they closed things down, almost like some countries in Asia really, really
Yeah.
took it seriously. And just like some of the countries in Asia, they're like getting, the Omicron wave has been harder on them than some of the countries that were a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more loose,
Mm-hmm.
because I think people got infected essentially in Argentina and in parts of Europe So it was odd to go to these two countries that have really different COVID rates, really different structures of how they dealt with it. And it was definitely great to go to the more tightly controlled country first and then the more loosely controlled country, because it really felt like you were progressing through this, like, things are really getting better, in terms of the COVID. And the birds were awesome too. I don't want to talk about COVID the whole time, but the wine was super. But I think a lot of people are interested in hearing what travel's like at this point. And it doesn't really affect you if you sort of have it all planned, or if you have people that planned it for you or whatever.
Right. Having people that plan it for you certainly helps too. I mean, that sort of Chile sounds like how Hawaii sounded for us last year, where you have the separate thing that you filled out the form on, and that kind of thing. It occurred to me fairly recently that I am not on an organized trip for El Salvador and Costa Rica, and I do have to figure this all out on my own.
Right.
Both of them have no requirements, no testing, nothing.
Wow.
So, it feels like there's got to be a catch.
Yeah.
Which is making me nervous even talking about this. I might run over and get myself a rapid test just to just to have it as backup.
I know.
But
one thing I think I might have even mentioned it on one of the past podcasts, is those things you can do to get back into the US, the online, like it's a testing, like it's a home test that you actually have somebody online watch you do it, and then they officially give it the okay that you did it properly, so you're not cheating, essentially. Those have been really great on tours, because you have this window of 24 hours to get your test, and often we're in the middle of nowhere. So as long as you have internet, you can do one of these, and then you get the results immediately, 15 minutes, and you're set to go to get on the plane back home. And I think they've been really good, but it works.
Yeah. You know what? I thought about that, and you did say that before, because I woke up in the middle of the night last night thinking, oh man, I don't have this prepared. And I wish we would have recorded this a week ago so I could have ordered one of those, because I do have to have a test to get back in the US.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then for other places, like when I went to Uganda in December, we needed tested, but we got tested when we got off the plane there. Right. And that was nice, because I knew that was built in and I wasn't going to leave the airport without the test. To go back to the US, I'm just building in an extra 4 hours to arrive at the San Jose airport when I go to leave and take a test there.
Yeah, because you're only required to do you can do a rapid test to get back into, to the US. So you don't have to do the PCR longer tests. You can just do an antigen test.
Yeah.
My guess, I mean, I was thinking they were going to change that pretty soon, but I've been thinking that for weeks now.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. It's 12 days before I'm flying back home. Maybe by then something will have changed, but I don't know. Yeah. We'll see.
One of the coolest things, though, we in the birding and the food, is that we have like 2 days that are wine days, fully like food and wine. We have our binoculars with us, and sometimes we'll see a bird or two, like that will be new for the trip. But in essence, we go to do wine tastings, and then and we'll have like lunch at a really good restaurant, like, in Argentina and in Chile. And in Chile this year, the Chilean side, we were at Montes, which is a great, wine maker. And they have this restaurant that's run by this guy. Well, the chef is Francis Malman, who's like this really famous, Argentine chef.
Yeah.
And he has restaurants around, right? But he's sort of known as like the fire guy. Like he's grilling with wood and, smoking things and fish and meats. And it's very much like he sort of lives in Patagonia. And although he's trained in Paris, whatever, he just sort of took the grilling gaucho kind of world and made it into this way he sort of deals with food, right? So we're like, oh, this is going to be awesome. It's like going to go and try this out, because it was the first time we'd ever been there, and there's TV shows about him, and he's on Chef's Table, and so I,
Yeah.
highly
Yeah.
recommend it. So we go there and we're like ordering and stuff, and then he shows up, like, because these guys are never at their restaurants, right? Like they have
Well,
several
yeah.
restaurants, and he comes over and he starts talking to Ricardo, my co-guide, and I look, I'm like, oh my God, that's Francis Mollee, and I sort of like I do that one of like the finger pointing, if people are talking about birds or whatever, I said, hey, everyone.
Drinking their wine, yeah.
Yeah, like, look at this. And they're suddenly like, all the cameras go up, it was like a movie star or something.
Wow.
And he just sort of said, this is what I recommend, and it was like the flank steak or something, or something that he recommended. And it's funny because Ricardo was really bummed that he didn't think of something to say, because Ricardo's from Patagonia as well, from the Chilean side of Patagonia. And one of the things that Francis Mollee has been really keen on is stopping the mass sort of farm salmon that's going on in the South, which has a lot of negative implications for the environment and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been very keen on, like, as a chef, saying, like, we shouldn't be doing this to our environment with these farm salmon. Everybody loves salmon, but it's a little bit too much. So, and later we're replaying, we could have said about this, or maybe ask him if he likes birds, but you just are sitting there like an idiot going like, oh my God, taking pictures rather than engaging. He's just a human, right? Like, actually, if you just converse, you might actually, who knows, he might sit down and want to talk about birds, but instead we acted like, starstruck individuals. But that lunch was one of the best lunches I've had in my life. It was great.
Wow. Did you get the flank steak?
Yeah, I got that.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, so much fun.
I know, lots of birds too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and lots of birds.
Lots of birds. That's what got us there. Go for the birds, stay for the food.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all you need. So what's tourism like? Like, what's the pace like? Were the restaurants filled? And how was that?
They were definitely, it seemed like people were out and about, and it's the end of summer for them. Like, it was sort of, school was about to start, and people were out on the beach, and they were, the restaurants were hopping. Everything was kind of ticking along, and all the bus, drivers, operators and stuff were all telling us that things feel like they're back to normal in terms of the volume of clients and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the flight to Mendoza was full. Yeah, it's weirdly normal, except everybody's wearing a mask, right? Like, everybody's wearing a mask, and people are asking you for your temperature or whatever, but once you are into a restaurant, you sit down, your mask comes off, you start eating. It just feels normal, like, and low risk. Like it's definitely, obviously, with anything we do, there's always a risk, but it really feels like we're getting back to the levels of risk in travel that are sort of normal, or baseline. And we'll see if that sticks.
Yeah, I agree with that personally. That's how I'm feeling as well. And especially in the group travel with the testing and everything, as much as it's a hassle, I kind of like knowing that we all have the same baseline of assurance that we're doing everything we possibly can to make it low risk.
Right. Yeah.
And I imagine that helps too with just the group confidence and going forward with a trip and not worrying about what could go wrong quite as much.
Yeah. And I also travel with sort of home tests, like, quick tests. And I always feel like you have that tool to sort of, if you feel weird or whatever, is it a cold? Is it not a cold? That kind of thing. You don't want to be guessing. You want to be able to sort of make the right decisions if something happens. But I do think it's we've gone sort of past the it seems to me like the worst part of it, and now we're going to be living with this sort of lower level but always constant situation. I mean, I hate to say, because, we were saying for a long time it's not the flu, but eventually this will become like the flu, more like, it still is really dangerous for a lot of people. And it's still a major thing, but we will probably have to have a shot every year and know that there's riskier times and riskier situations. We always know winter, fall, winter's flu season. It's going to be like that. And I think we're kind of getting there. And even with these new variants that are coming out and stuff, they're still sort of in the same line of being highly transmissible, but lower in how they make you sick. But everybody should get vaccinated. Like it's, even if it's becoming less common, that if you have never been vaccinated, if you've never had the disease, you will get it. And you don't want it to be bad. So vaccinate, please, everybody. I'm sure we have a high vaccination crowd listening to us, but tell that crazy uncle of yours, get vaccinated.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah. And that's still what I see around here locally. It's the unvaccinated populations that are getting hit now, and it's really sad, and it's not changing. And that's just it. And like you said, with the development of the virus and with the whatever variants come out, a vaccine's always going to be a better defense than not having it.
Right. Exactly. Hey, I'll change the subject for a bit. I wanted to talk about this. I just saw this yesterday and I was reading about it today. These black swifts. Now, I think we talked about how crazy black swifts are, and the swifts that fly around all winter long.
Yeah.
Well, they just, like, some folks published a study using these, what they call multi-sensor data loggers, which means that they're actually telling you where the bird is, but also telling you like the temperature, the pressure, all these other things about what's going on the elevation they're at.
Yeah.
And they can actually figure out how high the birds are flying. And so these black swifts, you put these transmitters on them somewhere like in the Rockies, and then they fly south to Ecuador. And they found they're flying 8 months of the year nonstop. Some of them will have like a day where they take a break, but some of them don't. 8 months nonstop, always flying. Don't touch the ground. That's crazy.
It's absolutely crazy.
But the even crazier part is that they realize that they're flying at different elevations in the day than at night, depending on the moon. So in the day, they're up there, they're pretty high up, but still kind of, you probably could see them with binoculars. And then if there's a full moon, they go up to 4,000 meters in height. So, multiply that by 3 to get, feet or roughly. They go pretty high.
Yeah.
And in full moons, and in when there's no full moon, they actually stay relatively low. And what was weird is they had a full moon day or full moon night where there was a lunar eclipse, and the birds actually dropped down in elevation during the eclipse. It's as if the full moon allows them to go up higher, and they think they're actually feeding at night on high elevation insects, which they think is they know that there are insects up there because free-tailed bats are feeding on insects at that elevation. And these birds are then flying all day and all night, feeding in the day and sometimes feeding at night, and shifting their elevation depending on the moon in order to track food, which I thought was crazy. Then the other thing, it's reading this, every bit of this thing is sort of and there's more, each page of this was it turns out swifts are really long lived for their size. And one of their swifts was 17 years old. And then I thought like, wow, 17 years old. Like if you calculated the 8 months
Flight
out of the
time?
12
Yeah.
flight time, like how much of their life, how many years in the air these birds are at. It's like, wow. Like, I don't think anybody, can you imagine like Charles Darwin or some of the early biologists or whatever, even, I don't know, Roger Tory Peterson or somebody more recent. If you told him this, like, if you had a time machine, say, guess what? Black swifts, they fly around. He'd be like, no way. There's absolutely no way. That's absolutely impossible. Like, there were arguments even in the 70s that a blackpoll warbler could never have flown across the Gulf of
Wow.
Mexico. That was impossible. And now we're finding, I was blown away by the moon thing. Swifts are cool. They don't look like much, but they're pretty cool.
No, they're pretty cool. Okay, I've not read this paper. So this was all black swifts in the study.
Black swifts, yeah.
Huh.
And I thought I was just kind of like, trying to get, I read it because, it came up on one of my friends, Facebook thing. And then I was like, my gosh, this is crazy. And also like to contemplate that little tiny thing that you can stick on a bird now that tells you all that information.
Yeah.
And I think the technology that's happening right now is pretty outstanding. There was also a tracking of broadwing hawks where you put these little transmitters that connect up to, like, they download the data to the cell phones towers. So when they were in South America, these hawks were way far away from any system that you could get info from. But what's cool is like when they start migrating north, like a few days ago, one of these broadwings suddenly hit the system, the cell phone tower system down in Central America, I think probably like in Panama.
Yeah.
And suddenly all the data was downloaded,
right, because it's backtracking everywhere that it's stored, right? And then it downloads when it goes through.
So I was thinking, like, for the biologists, it must be like Christmas, it's like suddenly like the computer's like going ding, 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 with all these like records, and then the map hit suddenly and go, oh my gosh, this bird's been here or there or whatever doing this or that. And it's heading back to, they named this bird, what was the name of it? Charlotte 2.0. And she's on her way back to Muskoka, which is in Ontario by the Georgian Bay part of Lake Huron. So
is that tracking info online and accessible to follow?
There's a Facebook group called the Broadwing Hawk Project.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's
where it is.
They posted it, and it's from Hawk Mountain Sanctuary. So I don't know. I love this stuff. I don't know why it gives me such amazing pleasure to understand what a single bird does. Like, kind of like your
like our mockingbirds. Yeah.
Like and you think, and then to think like it could be the same one, year after year that comes in. It's just cool to know what these birds are up to, and then put together these big picture and conservation, level sort of answers. But just knowing that one bird does something like that.
Yeah, the repetition. I love seeing examples of a specific bird where you can see, which in general, that is something where it's like an oddball bird and it keeps coming back. Like we've talked about in a lot of cases on the podcast. Right. But then you have the tracking, and you don't need to have some sort of weird feature that allows you to identify the bird to know that it's the same individual.
Yeah.
And you just follow them.
Yeah. No, and I mean, social media, there's all sorts of stuff people, but every so often you get these cool things from social media where you're like, wow, I would never have known this, if somebody hadn't shared it. So I'm glad these projects they're being, quick with getting their sort of rough information out, or people sharing published papers and that kind of thing. It's just fantastic, because there's just so much going on, and you almost need your peer group to sort
Your
of
network,
help you
yeah.
through the network. It's great.
Yeah, I wouldn't be seeing any of that really. I'm interested, and especially these papers and reports. I don't have a immediate reason in my life to get that information, so that's a really big positive for social media for me. It's just seeing what knowledge is existing and evolving and how it's happening.
Yeah, and who's involved and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm always, I'll give the information of what's going on, but I should be more. On the show notes, we should put down who actually did this work, because I did not write it down, and it's important to give the compliments and to the folks that actually put in
very
all
much.
their
We
hard
can link
work.
the paper.
Yeah, we can link the paper. But hey, I think we're right up on our time where we have to pack.
That's it.
And get the laundry out.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still going to be putting it off. I'm going to go sit outside and look for mockingbirds, have a drink, and do it 30 minutes before I have to leave. But I'll say I'm doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I got a bunch of stuff to do, but I'm good. I always try to like pack first, then you don't have to worry about it. Then I always
that sounds nice.
I pack like a third, then I still have to worry about it. It's like but
well, have a great trip to Cuba.
Yeah, you two have a great trip, and thanks for filling us in on what you've been up to. And guess what? Next time we'll probably be talking to George about India and all that too. So, and everybody, please keep sending us your suggestions or ideas or comments. I know, we tackle a lot of totally different subjects from,
we do,
from travel to Dan Lane discovering new species. So it's let us know what else we could be talking about too. So.
Perfect.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.